Good morning, YouTubers. I need to get a better mount for this phone because it keeps slipping on this grip. It's a flying video today. I'm talking about flying today, so if you're not interested in flying, just skip this video, okay? Now, I've been asked by a few people to fly different aeroplanes. I've got this flight simulator, and I'll just show you quickly, briefly. There's the computer, look, and there's the joystick. It's got rudder pedals down there on the floor, if you can see that. And I got my throttles down here. They are headset. This is all configured. This is an Airbus A320 configuration, which I use pretty much for everything. It would be nice to have 4 throttle levers and 4 prop levers and be lumbering around in a Lancaster, but I can get away with cheating a little bit when it comes to 4 engines because I'm actually configured for twin jets at the moment. You can have all your throttles working at once on one lever, and all your prop levers working at once on another lever. So 2 levers will work for it. But ideally, you know, you find the aircraft that you love the best and you want to fly the most, and you configure yourself for that. And for me, the twin jets or the fast piston engine aircraft are great. Now, someone asked me the other day, what is the most difficult aeroplane to fly? And none of them are difficult. But I will say that as aircraft have evolved, they came across a problem, a big problem. Okay, because people didn't know how to make aeroplanes. If you look at today's aeroplanes, they're all nose wheel for a start. You don't see any tail wheels anymore, very rare. Okay, most aeroplanes today are nose wheel, and that's because nose wheels are better. Okay, and there's a reason for that. And then there's a rudder bar. You steer the aircraft on the ground with the rudders. Okay, you've got this rudder bar for your feet, and you've got 2 pedals, and on top of the pedals you've got brakes. Okay, so most new aeroplanes today will be configured with a nose wheel and with toe brakes, hydraulic toe brakes. You press the left toe brake, the left wheel locks up. If you press the right one, and it assists you in turning. Okay, but if you think about it, when they were making cars, nobody knew where to put the accelerator and the brake. And eventually they came round. You've got so many different manufactured cars these days, but they've all got the same general universal configuration. You've got the clutch on the left, you've got the brake in the middle, and the accelerator on the right. It doesn't matter if it's left or right hand drive. People often said to me, the pedal's the opposite way round. If you drive a right hand drive car in England, no, they're the same. They're exactly the same. So aeroplanes have evolved the same. And anyway, back in the day, as you know from the First World War, everything was tail wheel. Okay, and tail wheels are great. There's nothing wrong with tail wheels. But they evolved and they got out of hand and they had to be changed. Because the idea of the tail wheel is you had a big circular airfield and you had a taxiway all the way around the outside. And you'd taxi the aeroplane until you were in a position where you were downwind. You'd face the aircraft into wind and you'd take off. Okay, into wind, not a problem at all. And you'd land into wind as well, big wind sock. It's very different. If you tried to do a crosswind landing and it was a bit gusty, you would crash and you'd break your aeroplane. Okay, so you've got to go into the wind when you're taking off and when you're landing, which was fine. That worked a treat. Until engines got bigger and faster and undercarriages got narrower, then we had big problems. This was an inherent design fault. Okay, and this was apparent in the 1930s. Okay, they got to the point where they were getting really adventurous. They'd gone from the biplane to the monoplane, and they were going seriously fast. The first Spitfire, for example, had a tail skid, not even a tail wheel, just a skid. And it was absolutely diabolical to handle on the ground with such a narrow undercarriage. And they had to have a man on each wingtip and on the tail just to pull it around and handle it on the ground. Once it was in the air, it was superb. There was nothing wrong with it in the air. Absolutely wonderful aircraft. But on the ground, it did suffer badly. And the Germans had the Messerschmitt 109, and that suffered badly as well because The wheels were too close together, and the engine could produce so much power. And this is where ground looping came in, and they discovered that they crashed more aeroplanes taking off and landing than ever they lost in combat. So they thought, we've got to do something about this inherent problem, because we want to get engines that are bigger and faster and more powerful. And that's why they actually went to the really wide undercarriage that you see on the Hawker Hurricane, the later P-51 Mustang, and the Vought Corsair and the P-47 Thunderbolt all had massively wide undercarriages, okay, to compensate for this problem. And that seemed to work, okay. Tail wheel lock, steerable tail wheels. Even the Hurricane was well ahead of itself. It had the castering, pneumatic, self-centering tail wheel. And all these things helped dramatically until the nose wheel came along and everyone went, whoa. And that was that. Tail wheels were finished. Supermarine did really well with the Spitfires, even though it had this design problem. You know, lots of Spitfire pilots, even very experienced Spitfire pilots, crashed their Spitfires on takeoff and landing. You've seen accidents in air shows and things. So, in my opinion, the Spitfire and the Messerschmitt 109 are probably the worst aeroplanes in the world to fly for any pilot. And if you can fly them, then you're a braver man than me, because I can fly the Spitfire in VR, in the flight sim. I can fly the 109, but I've had a lot of dodgy moments, you know, up on one wingtip, and they get away from me really easily. I've flown tail wheels. I've got about 150 hours on tail wheels P1, but nothing as powerful as a Spitfire or the 109. So, yeah, in my experience, they are the worst, most difficult aeroplanes to fly.